In this video, I want to talk to you about how to approach the reading for our New Mexico history class, particularly during the intersession, but even if you're taking the 12 or 15-week version of this course, um, there's no expectation that you should read every single word that has been assigned to you. Don't try to do the readings word for word. That's not really how to read academic texts, for one, but especially history texts, like our textbook. There are a lot of different things that you can use to help you to get the most out of your reading without actually reading everything word for word. Um, and, again, you'll be able to kind of pick out the things that are most significant to you as you comment on those briefly in the reading tweets. You'll be able to delve more deeply into one specific topic that really caught your interest in the timeline assignment. And then in the journal or discussion assignment, depending on which you do, you'll be able to think in more depth about what you're taking away from the learning that you've done in that particular unit. So the reading is the backbone of all of that. As you'll notice here for Unit 2, there are 3 chapters from our digital textbook assigned, and a couple of other, there's an exploratorium on Chaco Canyon and a podcast episode called The Return of Oñate's Foot. It's a lot. I mean, it honestly is a lot. The way that survey courses, though, work, there's just too much for us to be able to study, even though New Mexico history is technically designed in its course outcomes to have us study from the earliest inhabitants of New Mexico all the way to the present. Again, whether we're doing that in 2 weeks or 15 weeks, that's just too much to even delve into. So what we're doing is trying to get a really good overview of the main ideas, the main events, the main figures that have shaped New Mexico's cultures and shaped our history. That doesn't mean that we should all focus on the exact same things, right? History, as we've been learning about, is something that is based on perspective. It's based on different narratives that people participate in or shape in certain ways. And so, what you're going to be doing then is the work of a historian. You're going to be thinking about what is significant from each chapter, from each section, and why. And you're going to use that to guide your own pathway through studying New Mexico's histories. So that's really what I want to emphasize in this video, is that you are finding your own path through New Mexico's past. You're trying to find the things that are most meaningful and significant to you, to your community, to your loved ones. We all have different identities. We all have different ways that we are New Mexican. And so you need to think about that as you study New Mexico's history. And I keep saying New Mexico's histories because that's something I really emphasized in the digital text itself. There are so many different ways of looking at New Mexico's past. There are so many different people of different racial, ethnic, gender, religious, and on and on and on backgrounds that make New Mexico what it is. We also have a legacy of having 2 different colonizations, or at least 2 major ones, in the Spanish colonization of the 16th century and the American colonization and conquest of the mid-19th century. Both of those have had a profound impact on New Mexico, on who we are, on what people find when they come here from outside of the region. So again, all of these things are relevant and important to think about as you complete the readings and study New Mexico's histories. All of that said, I want to show you what this looks like in the textbook then. So notice for this one, we have chapters 2, 3, and 4. Over in this other tab, I have our digital textbook open. So what you'll do is you will sign in. If you have any questions about how to do that, go back to the syllabus, or the what is it? It's the content and then the overview and syllabus section of our course. As well as in the syllabus itself, there is a link to that document that will give you the coupon code that you need to be able to access the textbook. Please don't buy it. You've already done that with your course fees. If you have any questions about that, if it doesn't make sense or you're hearing about this for the first time, please contact me and let me know, and I'll be happy to help. All right, so this is what our digital textbook looks like. Here we are, History of New Mexico. It'll tell you you're in progress. I'm less concerned about what this system that CNM has created tells you about whether or not you're making progress. Instead, what you need to do is think about um, how you're moving through these chapters. So we will have read chapter 1 in the first unit. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 are what we're working on in Unit 2. So we're talking about New Mexico's first peoples, we're talking about Spanish exploration and conquest, and we're talking about Spanish colonization of New Mexico during the 16th century. So I know all of that because I've read the titles to those 3 chapters. So what you need to do then is use the titles and use these headings to get a sense of what is coming in these chapters, right? So I know that, I know because I wrote this book, but the very first section of each of these gives you a vignette. So that is someone's story. That has something to do with what's going on in the chapter, a story that's important that will help introduce what's going on in the chapter. So it introduces the big main themes. Those are important to read through so that you can get a sense of, what are the narratives that we're thinking about as we study Spanish colonization, or backing up, as we study patterns of Spanish exploration or New Mexico's first peoples. So that first section gives you a specific story to think about and the main themes that we're studying in this chapter. Then you can look at these chapter headings to get a sense of, okay, why did First Peoples humanity need to be recovered in the first place? So be active, have questions in your mind as you go. As I pointed out in each of those reading sections of the unit modules, I've posted some questions for you to help you with that. But again, have your own questions and be thinking about, what do I want to learn about New Mexico's first peoples that will help me really understand the foundation of New Mexico history as I work through this. Again, as I read these headings, I'll see we're going to think about how to think of first peoples in terms of their humanity, in terms of who they are as people, and not just who they are as what artifacts they left behind. We're going to think about their culture regions, the development of Pueblo society. So anyone who's lived in New Mexico for any time, much at all, knows Pueblo people are kind of the central indigenous people along the Rio Grande Valley. Of course, we have also Navajo people and Apache people. Those are the Athabascans. And then we're going to think about who were these people on the eve of Spanish invasion. So this chapter, I mean, admittedly, there could be books about each of these chapters, and there are books. That's what the references and further reading will point you toward if you want to learn more. I've tried to distill what we can hope to get through in the short time that we have together. So let me show you then, since we've looked at these headings and kind of thought about what we might be finding in chapter 2, now you can go ahead and jump in and start reading. So I'm going to click New Mexico's First Peoples. Again, this is taking us to that intro section where there's a vignette about New Mexico's earliest inhabitants, about their cultural heritage, and what the main themes of this chapter are. So here we're thinking about how people got to the Western Hemisphere. There's a short video about the last ice age. This is mostly just an animation to demonstrate that. And we're talking about different hypotheses about how people arrived in the Americas here. So I'm going to scroll down. I apologize. But essentially, this one is talking about how we know what we know. And once you get to the end, if you click here, you'll see Recovering First Peoples. You'll remember that was the next heading that was in that list before we clicked in here. So I'm going to go to this one. And as I was looking at those headings, I was thinking, I want to know what that is all about, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to read that in detail. So what we're talking about once again here is, how do we know what we know about New Mexico's earliest inhabitants? So here we're talking about oral histories. We're talking about what gives that human shape to the history of the earliest inhabitants. What are some of the pieces of evidence they left behind? So look at the images, look at the headings. You can follow some of these links to get more information. Here is the Acoma creation story. So that helps us think about how these people have their cultural foundations, these people who are the foundation of New Mexico itself. There are also this video about Pueblo pottery. So again, you can kind of get a sense by surveying that of what's going on here. I didn't realize I'd clicked on that. So here's the Yakima creation story. You'll notice the way this one worked. You have to click back to get out of this. Hopefully it'll work, because I've noticed I'm in Chrome. Sometimes you have to actually hold the back button, have the drop down menu come up. This one worked. So down here, I'm going to see ancient cultural regions. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of scanning through uh, what the main ideas are here. I know Joe Sando is a Pueblo historian by looking at this first sentence, right? Um, and so I might read the first paragraph of each of these and read topic sentences to get a sense of what's going on in each section. But again, once I scroll down and I realize, okay, here are the culture regions. If I want to learn about what's going on with the ancestral Puebloan region, I'll look for that in the text. But otherwise, I'm just going to do surveying, reading, I should say, skimming the topic sentences, so I get a sense of what this chapter is all about. And as I scroll down, there's a lot of features here that I can look at. The images are very helpful. Here we have photographs of Pueblo Bonito at Chaco Canyon. There's a lot of really rich audio visual in these first few chapters, especially. So now I know, this covered the very earliest peoples in those three culture regions. I want to move on and learn about the development of Pueblo society. And again, what I'm really trying to emphasize here is that it's okay to focus on some of the features, focus on beginning paragraphs, introduction paragraphs, and topic sentences. And as you read along, if you're reading just topic sentences and you find that you don't really know what's happening or you got confused, then you stop and you go back and read a little bit more in depth. But you don't have to do that the whole way through, right? Here I see this map of the various linguistic groups that make up the Pueblo people. And so if I want to learn more about, how those came to be or what the distinctions are, then I focus on and read in depth these paragraphs. But if I want to move on and go down here, sorry for the head spinning scrolling. If I want to go down here to the Athabascan people, I click here and I look to figure out, who were these people that weren't the Pueblos, but were also indigenous peoples of the earliest times in New Mexico. Mostly just be curious, have questions, skim as best you can, read in detail where you need to. If that doesn't work for you, let me know, and I can give you some resources for other types of methods of reading without reading every single word. But that's something that often works for me. I do recommend you take notes either digitally in a document or handwritten. Those will help you with the assignments. You can complete your reading tweets based on those notes. You can find a topic for the timeline based on those notes, and so on. So again, I hope this is helpful. As with everything, please ask questions whenever you have them, and I hope that you're doing well.